I'm going to explain to you why it is that I feel like I am so inordinately blessed. That is my standard operating answer. People ask me all the time, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Whatever the fuck their question is. And my standard operating answer is inordinately blessed. Makes some people, if they've never heard it before, makes them pause for a second and be like, I'm sorry, what? And then it makes them think about their self for a second. And usually, almost every single time, people say that they feel blessed as well. People that know me very well are looking for me to say that answer. If I happen to be thinking about something else or concentrating on something else, and I'm like, oh, I'm good. And I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. I'm just responding, second naturally. They'll be like, what? And I'm like, I'm sorry. Inordinately blessed. Because they love to hear it from me, right? Now, it goes both directions. You can look at my life in one way and be like, oh, yeah, absolutely. You have a lot to be blessed over. You should feel blessed. And then you could look at it from another perspective and be like, how is it that you can possibly feel like you're so blessed when you've been through so much? So every single day, man, every day I wake up and the first thing that I do, I don't get out of bed yet. I lay there for a second and I take in the moment and I recognize like how lucky I am to be experiencing another day. Number one, I woke up. Now, I don't mean it to sound super cheesy like it probably sounds, but that is the truth. I woke fucking up like I fucking won already. Just right there. Just from waking up, I already won. But the other part of it is, man, being able to experience my life in the form that it is now. I am not trying to pretend like my life is perfect because it is not. I promise you, I am still struggling through a lot of things. I'm still trying to get my life together just like everybody else out there. Just like whoever you are watching this right now, you're trying to get your life together. I am still doing the same exact thing myself. Promise. But my life hasn't been perfect. Far, far, far from. My childhood was, we'll say, turbulent, to say the least. And then when I was when I was old enough to snatch some agency for myself, when I was very, very still young, still considered a child, I took off and lived life on my own. And so that was also not just turbulent, but extraordinarily hella violent as well. I learned to make money through the streets. I learned to survive in the streets. I learned everything that I learned about survival and humanity from the perspective that I understood it at the time through the streets. But I made it through that shit. Thing is I went to prison. And I went to prison twice. And in aggregate, total, I've spent 18 years in prison. So I went to prison for the first time for shooting up some people in a car. And I went for 5 years. I got out for 4. It really wasn't that long. And that was a turbulent time as well because I was still trying to just like figure things out. 25 years old, still trying to figure out life. And I was just trying to make things happen still. But I hadn't learned my lesson in quite a few ways. So I ended up going back to prison again. And I spent 13 years. So I spent 18 years total in prison, right? Had a very turbulent childhood, had a very violent, we'll say young adulthood, or, throughout my teens, my entire teens. Because I went to prison as soon as I turned 20 and was in prison a couple of months later. So my entire life up to my 20s was turbulent and violent. I go to prison. I promise you, it didn't get any less turbulent and any less violent for those 5 years. Got out for 4, still nothing but turbulence, as the best description that I can give for it. Go to prison the second time, man, I start putting things together differently. I start realizing I got to start challenging myself on the interior. I got to start conquering things that are happening inside, right? So I start changing my development process of who I am. Fast forward 13 years, I get out. I'm out for a few years. I've been out for about 5.5 years. I get out and I assure you, the parole department, not that they're doing anything. The parole department, for the most part, has left me alone, but I had some psychiatrists that were all over my ass for a little while. So, but for the last few years, they just leave me the fuck alone. I don't cause any problems. I'm not in any danger. I've passed all their little tests. I've done all that little stuff, and so I'm good. So here I sit now, trying to figure out my life and put it all together. The thing is when I look back on all of that stuff, when other people look at it, they're like, oh my God, you went through this and you did that. And oh my God, this, that, right? But when I look back on it, it's crazy because I recognize like all the hardest times in my life are the things that I'm the most grateful for. Now I've gone to prison twice, and for me, going to prison either time wasn't bad. I am actually very grateful for both times that I went to prison. Isn't that crazy? Getting out now and being around people that are, younger, 20 years old, 18 years old, 21 years old, 22 years old. Elia is now 22 years old, just turned 22 yesterday. My little brother's 18, so I got a lot of younger people, 26, 28, and down to generally about 22. and that around me. And I've come to recognize that a lot of the individuals, they had parents that protected them. Now, I'm not saying that my mom didn't try to protect me. I'm just saying that life was more than we could put together at the time. So, but I'm actually grateful, especially when I look at the things that they've gone through and the way that I've gone through things. I'm grateful that I went through all of those hardships as a young child. I'm grateful through I went through everything that I went through to learn to survive the way that I did in my teens. I'm grateful for everything that I experienced while I was in prison both times. But one of them helped me become a man in terms of conquering and controlling my exterior environment, and the other one helped me conquer and control my interior environment, things that are going on inside. And what I can say is the things that are challenging you the most, the hardest things that you're going to go through, as long as you make it to the other side, man, they're going to be the things that you're the most grateful for later. Now, when you're going through these things, man, they are fucking tough and they are hard. And it feels like those things are never going to end. And it doesn't matter what you're being presented with at the time, at the moment that you're being presented with it, it just seems so difficult. And it's so hard to imagine that there's going to be a way to escape, that there's going to be a way out of this situation. Even the stuff that I'm putting together in my life right now, the struggles that I'm putting together in my life right now, every direction that I turn, I'm like, well, this is an issue. Well, that's a prohibiting factor. This is a barrier. This is a problem. These are problems. You know, I've got all of those things. And so while I'm in the middle of this, I recognize I'm going to figure out a way to the other side of those things. But I've been in this situation, so I've been in much worse situations so many times, and I'm most grateful for those situations. And you're going to be the same way, and I know it's going to be difficult, man. Sometimes you got to just look up from what you have going on directly in front of you and realize that there's so much more going on in life. There's so much more happening around you. And whether you decide to be a part of that thing or just admire it from a distance or just be happy that it's happening or any of those things, that's up to you. The point is man, life is full of an incalculable amount of beauty if you just learn to see it. And I learned to see it while I was in prison. I recognized that I was still surrounded by an incalculable amount of beauty. Now, was it in the environment? Was it in the day-to-day transactions of the things that happen in prison? No, of course not. But I was still able to find those things. I was still able to find like moments of peace when I was in my cell by myself. I was still able to find beauty if I could see. There was a place where I was at where there was nothing but it was surrounded by beautiful mountains, man. This scar of the prison was in the middle of a beautiful, beautiful place. So when most people never even saw past the fence, you can see through the fences, but most people never saw past the fence. I would look through to the other side of the fences all the time, and I saw this beauty. I would see beauty in watching people develop themselves, whether it was through working out, drawing, reading, writing, becoming a leader in prison, whatever their path looked like for them. And then, of course, making sure that I paid attention to those things for myself. It was and has been the hardest things in my life that I am the most grateful for. They have taught me to appreciate everything that I have. So when I wake up today in my bed, outside of prison walls especially, right? So a lot of people would argue, well, you have a lot to be thankful for, man. You're not in prison. You know, I was supposed to die in prison. I got lucky. So they say, well, you have a lot to be thankful for. But if you look at it through the entire transactions of all my entire life, you'd probably look at it a little bit differently. Like, oh my God, all of these different things took place, and your life was made so difficult. Some things by your own choosing, but some things not. Doesn't matter. In aggregate, your life has been highly tumultuous. So how could you possibly see that? How could you possibly feel and think that your life has been so good and so great? But it truly is the hardest parts of my life that made me so grateful. Now, there are other elements to it, and I'm not trying to say that those other elements do not play a part. I am very fortunate. I have met some wonderful and great people in my life, and I am very fortunate that I've met the people that I've met. So, I mean, Ely is a wonderful, wonderful person to know. My mom, I'm so very fortunate to have her as my mom. The people that have stood by me for the last 20 something years, my boy Jonathan and my homegirl C, they are very important to me. These are people that have added to my life in an incalculable amount of ways. And in a way that's just like so deep and so visceral to me. And there's so many people that I'm not mentioning. There's a long line of people that I'm just not mentioning that have all contributed to the the beauty of my life and the wonderfulness that I'm experiencing through my life. So I'm not trying to detract from any of those things. And I'm not saying that there's not other elements to life that make life worth living. You know, it doesn't matter the things that you're into, whether it's just a quiet Sunday morning with, you know, someone that you care for a lot, someone that you love. Or, you know, it doesn't matter what it is, whatever you find, if you have a passion that you engage, maybe you like playing the piano, maybe you like to write poetry, it doesn't matter, whatever, however you choose to engage in life, there's going to be other elements that add to it. But most certainly, the hardest elements that you're going through, man, when you get to the other side of them, you're going to be so grateful that you went through them because they're going to help you shape. They not only do they help shape you into who you are, but they make you just so grateful for those experiences when they are capable, when they shape you into someone who's capable of experiencing better things in a way that other people don't seem to be able to when they get to them. The light, when you live in the darkness for so long, every ray of sunshine is counted. You know every single ray of sunshine, and you remember, and you feel them, you feel the warmth from each one of them so much more than the person who's lived in the sun his whole life. That's all I wanted to share with you guys today. Good luck.